All right. What's that? Chickens. And some chicks. Okay, ready? Wow, this is a big class. We have 5 people. Okay, salute. First exercise. Hands up. Turning. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. This side. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and stop. Okay, hands up. Breathe down. 1, 2, 3. Your right. 2, 3. Your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands up. Reach down. 1, 2, 3. To your right. 2, 3. To your left. 2, 3. Center. Inhale. Exhale. Hands in waist. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Cross. Knees. Circular movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Center. Hands on your waist. Neck turning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2. Back and forth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 and 2. Center. Tilt to the side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 and stop. Center. Down. Rotate. 1, 2, 3. Reverse. 1, it out. Switch. 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 Switching straight in front knee. Switch. Straight in the knee. Okay. Switch. Center. shoulder roll. And reverse. breathing. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, we shift from side to side, hands to waist. And center. Now we're going to lift. Okay, shake it out. Okay, so right leg swing, get your hands going. Ready to kick in. Switch. Switch side to side. Switch. Okay, deep breathing, hands up. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, silk belly. Oh, open and close, or silk belly first. Lost track. Okay, center, circular movements. Okay, lower hoop. Shoulder height. Elbows down. Palms down. Extend. Deep breathing, inhale. Okay, diagonal flying. Switch. Okay, cloud hands. Lift up. Carry tiger to mountain. Infinity sign. Form the fists. Okay, palms together. Strum the lute. Okay, thumbs up, alternate the shoulders. Switch. And center. Turn. Draw the bow. Okay, scoop down, over the head, fan through the back. Okay, raise the hand. Okay, palms down, deep breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So we'll go through the sequence first, and we'll see what we can work on afterwards. Okay, ready? Feet parallel. Preparation. Just on the elbow. Deep breathing, inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Okay. Any section, you have a question? Any questions in the section? So, like I've been talking about the Tai Chi Paradigm, the whole front section of the form, essentially the main, mostly the postures in that part is actually sort of reviewed in the long form. So the better you do the Tai Chi Paradigm movements, the better your long form will be, as far as working the postures and the integration of the body. And then when you get to the long form, there's some difficult movements like the downward posture and the kicks and so forth, and it just elongates the form, gives you more time to go into the active meditation side of movement, because once it's programmed into your system, then you can go through the form, sort of no-mindedness, it's called. And that's really when movements have sequentially entered into the subconscious, and you just go through it. So because we're creatures of habit, when we go through these movements over and over again over time, it just becomes, habitual. We just know it because it's a sequence, it's different from what we typically think is a habit. Habits are usually like, picking up a glass or walking, any of the things that we do without thinking. That's the same idea, just that a sequential thing like Tai Chi, it's much more involved, because you use it as a vehicle to develop your movements, develop the concepts, develop the principles, develop the ideas of balance, yin and yang, and so forth. So there's a lot to it, just taking a sequence of movements. And then each posture is kind of defined as a mini sequence. And those mini sequences can be focused on, like we did the other day. We started off standing in this V position, 90 degrees. So geometry, joint angle position is something I talk a lot about, because muscle memory is joint angle positions and how we manipulate them. So we're in a 90-degree angle, and it's easiest to define positions by our geometry of positions, where it's square, where it's a triangle, where it's extended. So we have our center, we have our 45-degree corners, we sink our elbows. That kind of defines the 45-degree line in two planes. You have the 45s there, and then when you sink here, you have 45 here, you have 45 here, you have 45 here. If we open the feet by pivoting 1.5 times on one side, you have your horse stance. This is about 45 degrees. And then we're here when we're in single whip. When we turn in like this to hold the ball, we're referencing shoulder height. And then when we go like this, we slant. So slanting, so this actually is curved. It's round, right? So you create this shape, holding the ball as a round position. And then we have vertical. If we went like this and like this, we would have two vertical arms. If we just drop the shoulder, this arm is in a slant. And if we extend this arm, we have a slant. So the arms end up parallel. When we lean like this and turn the hands so they're flat, you split like this, you'll have... So when we split, because the elbow is here, and we're separating the hands, at some point, this arm elongates or drops. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So this is relaxing the shoulder. Okay, so the idea of relaxing the shoulder is to sink the elbow. And sinking the elbow allows you to release. Because when the shoulders are up, they're usually tense, right? When the shoulders are down, they're more relaxed. And part of that is because you feel like if your elbow feels like it's dropping down, then it'll take your shoulders down with it. So, see, right? So when we start the form, we drop the elbows. So we take the shoulders down, and then we press down. Pressing can stop here or elongate by expanding, right? So if our arm is bent and we straighten it, it's really expanding, right? Because you're increasing the length of it, so it must be expanding. So expanding and folding and compressing is shortening. So there's the balance. So you have short and long movements combined as, sort of opposing directions or opposing forces. When we move out, we move back in. So we move out and we move back in. We turn to the right, we turn to the left. We turn to the left, we turn to the right. So it depends on, they just balance each other out. So that's what horizontal movement. So when we're in space and we turn the shoulders, it doesn't happen simply because something has to pivot, right? So if you turn your head, you can have your neck turn, you can track this line, you can turn from the spine, or you can turn from the feet, right? So all of those take you into a direction, either right or left. So if we're going to use the visual intent to take us over here, then we want the body to be tracking that. And then if the head and the body is connected, then you're going to turn in the middle of your back. If you reach a limit of 45 degrees and you want to continue in that direction, then you have to pivot off the feet, or the hip and the feet. So when you turn, the hip goes, then the feet. So all of these are connected. So you have to draw off of the joints that allow you to go in that direction. And then when we go forward, we drop the toe and we go forward and back. Forward and back. So we go forward and back for two reasons. One, to shift weight forward to fill the front side. One, to go backwards to fill the back side. But it's also the balance between what would be centered between the 2 feet and passing through it. So that's what we do. Now the feet, when they pivot, they steer you in a direction. So anytime you're turning, you would initiate at a directional thing from the sole, from the ground. So with the heel turns out, or you pivot off the heel, and it takes you into that corner. So if you look at this, if we pivot off the toe, the hip opens up like this, right? And then we're here. Now for me to get into that corner with the body, I have to turn. So your hip actually closed. You follow me there? Right? Your hip closed. Okay, we look in the mirror. See, we're in the mirror position and we turn like this, the hip open, right? That means it flared out 45 degrees. The fact that I shift my weight and then turn my hips this way, this closed. If I step to here and I bring my foot here, I allow my hip to open again, and then I go forward and back, and I turn, so the hip open, close the hip, and I'm back to here. And then I'm here. And open, and I go forward and back. But we don't always think of it like that because we're not paying attention to that, right? So we're standing here like this, and I go like this, and I go like this. The hip open, right? The hip open meaning it pivots like this. If I pivot back like this, it turned inward, it's closing. So something that goes inward closes, something that goes outward opens. Like a door. You swing it out, it opens. It comes back in, it closes. That's just the balance between a joint. So that's an idea, it's a concept that happens in your movement. So when we pivot on the heel of the foot, we're opening and closing our hip essentially. So in order to go in and out with the hips, you have to cause your thigh to create a rotation, torsion, it spins out and in. So that works, part of the control, but also balance. Where does it come in the form? The hips? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so because this is okay, how about this, all right? If I go forward and back and I toe out, now my hips are square, you can see they're pretty, right? And then I can't just step up, right? I have to turn here because I have to take my body weight over to the heel of this foot, and then my foot goes out, or I change my hip and then move forward. Now in the very beginning, I'll show you, if I start my form like this, I step up to here, my hips turned and I square my body, I sit back, I kick my heel up, my hips went that way. Now this is turning like this, so you see the hips moving, but it's really inside the joint. When I go like this, I'm facing that corner. In order for me to turn to the front, I have to adjust my torso by turning my hip to go forward and back and forward and back. Now I'm going to do this. Turn. Now this is keeping this as one unit till I get to here. Right? And then I close. I'm here. Open. Now I open this and I open this. I'm now in single whip. Okay. So you see what actually happened. It's a little bit more detailed than you anticipated, mainly because the lower part of our body doesn't pay attention to what goes on above because we haven't taught it. So learning movement is a motor skill, but you first have to have a concept and a principle to sort of guide your movements. So if we just randomly move, it's not really organized enough. It's not systematized. So systematized movement teaches you, proficiency, accuracy, and you build off of that. Then when we integrate the body, if something happens below, something happens above. So if my body's turning like this, and I'm turning like this, then the hands, I'm moving to my left. In this case, I'm stepping, I'm pivoting, I'm moving to my left. But my torso also has to be controlled because I have to build this. So on Saturday, John asked a question about brush knee. When does that happen? When do you shift your foot? When do you move your body? And it appears that, so all this, because we're moving in space, it's dimensional. And because we're dealing with different components, our appendages, with each one of our appendages has a different space, right? While we're looking here, if I do this, my arm is doing all these dimensional things, right? But our body's not tracking that because it's disconnected. But if I'm turning like this, now the body has become part of that. If I step out, then my legs become part of that. And then I come back in. Or if I go like this, and I shift and I turn. Now when I shift like this and I turn, the hip closed here. When I went like this, it's open, and then it closed here. And then it cycles again. So when I turn like this, then you can see that there's an integration. So isolated movement, sustaining positions without movement, can become excessive. So if your joint stays in a position consistently in one position all the time, you have no movement. No movement means no circulation. That's not good. So it doesn't matter if it's an exercise. You can still damage your joint, right? So it depends on how you approach it. So sustaining positions is okay. You sustain it. But don't sustain it with excessive tension in the body. And don't sustain it. Let it relax and stack. So what is stacking? When your skeletal structure stacks, then it uses the least amount of effort. The least amount of it means you use the least amount of strength. So strength becomes the defining factor. When they say use your mind and not strength, you have to delete and get rid of the excessiveness, get rid of the erroneous tension in the body that's not really necessary to create these positions. So some of that stuff is there anyways. Some of that is proprioception. Some of it is not knowing. A lot of it is not knowing because your body doesn't really know. all it does is do it. Like we stand up here, we don't really think about how much tension this part has or that tension has before you collapse. Because we're not really measuring that. We're just sort of staying there. And you could be standing here pretty relaxed or pretty tense. It depends on the condition, or it depends on what's running through your mind at the time. So that's what, these are concepts. So you have to just take this information in and try to understand it up here. But what really has to understand it is here. So that, that cross-referencing, the feedback, and, the exchange between the body and mind is really something that has to happen over time.
Can you give another example of show me how your body wouldn't be stacked when you talk about the stacking?
Okay, so if a lot of people, when they talk about falling, they say, one of the things reason why people fall is because fear, that's number one, and looking down. So when you look down, you're not stacked, right? You're not stacked because when you're looking down, or you're tilting because your butt goes out, your center of gravity is still here. The reason when you lean forward, your butt has to go back, right? Because it compensates. So if your butt goes back and you're leaning forward, where do you think your strength is? Right here. That keeps you from tipping over. So that's part of proprioception. It's just a balanced reaction. But the thing is, when you lean forward, the tendency is to go forward and then fall toward that direction because your center of mass is heavy. When you take a walk, you're actually controlling the fact that you're not falling over. Just like when you're in a leaning stance. When we're leaning, we're not tipping like this. We're actually like this. Right? Why? Because you have to have that balance. But we're supported here. This is unsupported. So at the end of the day, your back's going to be really tired. And the other thing is, because your center of mass is forward, you become top heavy. So what happens when you trip and you don't have good reaction and you're stiff? You're going to crash.
But when I do the form, I frequently actually look down, and I shouldn't be looking down. It seems like then I wouldn't be stacked.
So, no, you gaze, because your visuals, your eyes can move. You don't fix your eyeballs and then go like this. You can actually, they're fluid. So if the hands are sinking, you can get, so if you look out about 7 feet at an angle without tipping the body, then you're okay. Because when you look, really gazing means you see all, but yet, so not focusing on one thing. So that's, so when you're doing your Tai Chi, you should follow your hands. You track your hands. So it goes down. You don't have to actually move the head much. You just have to gaze. So gazing can have a wider spectrum of vision, of viewing. The field of vision is bigger. So you gaze and you see more, but you're not focused on one point. You don't see detail. You see, like a field of. So that's, and then stacking is this. Shift your weight so your spine is over your heel. Now you're stacked. And when you lift, your body's over that foot. So that's stacking. So stacking has to do with shifting your body skeleton, releasing the tension in the joint so that your body will shift. And then once you're over your foot, your body starts to recognize it. And then once you're stacked, you can get rid of the excessiveness. Because you don't want hands to do this. Because once it does that, then actually you're staying balanced, but you're creating forces. When you create forces on the top, what happens? You become top heavy. You become unstable. Like a building when it's up on, way up tall, it's swaying and there's action going on different, the wind currents and everything causing that. So buildings actually move and it's staying stable. But if it's too much, like during an earthquake, things start to break or give way, and then it starts to want to crumble. So your body is like that. You want to find your balanced position using your sensory system. Now, buildings don't have a sensory, well, some of them actually do because it's a mechanical sensor. We have this ability to detect, but first we have to understand. So a lot of this stuff is really building body intelligence and understanding, how the body really works. So, most people don't look at Tai Chi as, as complicated as this because it just becomes a bunch of series of movements floating in space, and you're doing Tai Chi and there's no rhyme or reason or structure. That's not really Tai Chi. That's really, that's a commercial back in the 70s when the people used to just run through the grass and they just kind of, that's not Tai Chi. That's what you saw back in the day, right? So anyways, that's it in a nutshell. We can go through the long form now. This is a little bit of theory and principle. Okay. All right, ready? Grasp the sparrow's tail. These are obliques. Oblique single whip. Fist under elbow. Repulse the monkey. or backwards. Retreat and divert, block and punch. Step up, grasp the sparrow's tail, single whip, and cloud hands. second set of cloud hands. Okay, deep breathing. So one of the things about Tai Chi compared to, if you were to compare it to just, dance or even traditional type of dance, ballet or so forth, whatever it is, the difference is the conscious intent, so when you bring conscious intent, it means it brings in, to me, it brings in functionality, and the mind intent wants you to do something specific. So with dance is more aesthetics. This has a side of aesthetics, but it's really functionality, because every movement is directed and directing something. It's a direction. So if you're pushing, the intent is to have a sense of pushing or spreading or splitting, pulling, pushing, expanding and contracting. But you're really moving objects, or moving, even just moving air, you're moving it. So you have that idea of direction, and then certain parts of your body have advantage positions and disadvantage positions. So that's what you have to find. You have to find the strength of the position and the weakness of the position, because that's the balance. So you have to convert the strong position into the weak, or the weak position into the strong, and then when it gets to a point, it could become weak, and then you have to kind of go back and forth with it. So in other words, if you go forward, and then if you go too far, then there's a weakness there. Or if you're standing in a single whip position like this, and your shoulders are back, there's a position of weakness, because your center of gravity is behind you. So if you're standing like this and forces are acting on you, you can't stay there very long, so you have to compensate for the position. So you shift, and you shift. Now a position like this has strength right to left, but then if I move to my left and I pivot, now my strength is changed. When I move to here, my position is changed. I adjust, and then when I move to here, find a position where it's square or oblique or slanted. So that's really body form. So body form, through manipulation of skeletal structure, changes your center of mass and your strength and weakness positions. So when you're leaning forward, that's a position of weakness. So how do you fix that? Tuck your butt in, but not overly, because if you tuck your butt in, then you're going to be leaning backwards, right? So a lot of times someone go into sitting stance like this, tuck their butt in, and you end up like that, right? If you're going forward to Jade Lady Work Shuttle and you go like this, and then you tilt, then there's a misalignment body, and then you're actually not balanced. So there's a position of weakness. So you have to fix those things first intentionally, using understanding, consciousness, and then your body will fix itself over time because of the experience and the understanding, and it self-corrects over time. But that over time, that time element varies among individuals, and it could be a really long time before you figure it out. But that's the process. All right, ready? There's a joke.